Jazz Chisholm Jr. is headed back to his happy place. By now, you know the news. Aaron Boone has announced that the All-Star is headed back to second base, and he's going to start there tonight against the Mariners. Well, Greg Joyce is on ahead of tonight's game to talk about the move and what it's going to mean for DJ LeMahieu. Greg, thanks for hopping on with us, man. They start this series tonight, but here's the news that broke the internet. Jazz is going back to second. Oswald Peraza goes to third. But about a week ago, Aaron Boone said that he kind of had no plans of making the switch. So what led to the change?
Yeah, I don't know if we'll ever get the full story, but I think it's probably a combination of things. Obviously, Jazz sat out Sunday's game, revealed that he's been dealing with a sore shoulder over the last couple of weeks. Said he said it's not an excuse for some of the throws he'd had from third base that turned into errors, but I think it bakes into it a little bit. He obviously he wasn't as sharpest at third base. He's more comfortable at second. That's his where he trained all offseason, all spring training, and had a good start there to the season. And obviously, when he came back from the IL, DJ LeMahieu was there, but it seemed like it was headed in this direction at some point. Thought it might not be until the trade deadline because they're in the market for a third baseman or a second baseman, which is really some of the reasoning why they had moved Jazz to third, just to kind of give them some extra flexibility and what they could acquire before the deadline. But I think a number of things that this tough stretch here, more and more, it was pretty obvious that they were kind of shooting themselves in the foot a little bit by having Jazz at third and DJ at second. DJ just doesn't have the range at second that he once did, and Jazz had some errors and mistakes at third. So combine that with the shoulder, trying to get them out of this, a rough stretch here. A week, and this is the last week before the All-Star break, and then you come out of that and it's the trade deadline. So I think a number of things, but it seemed like it was headed this way. Boone kind of hedged on it last week, like you said. It kind of left the door open for it to happen. It was just a matter of when. So it seems like it's the right decision. It's kind of a long time coming, but yeah, it's one of those that the more you watch, the more you just knew it needed to change.
So since we don't have that much time before the deadline, or they don't have that many games before the deadline, is Peraza, is he auditioning for the starting job full time, or do you think no matter how well he plays, Brian Cashman is still going to go after a proven third baseman?
Yeah, I think they're still going to go after a third baseman. Perez has gotten a handful of chances of a runway to see what he can do in the big leagues, and it just hasn't happened. At least offensively, he's a incredibly talented defender, no matter where you put him in the infield. And every now and then he'll show you something at the plate, but he just hasn't been able to do much, consistently when he's gotten those chances. So we'll see how much he plays at third base between the split between him and DJ LeMahieu, but. I think he's, either way, it's just kind of a stopgap here in the last few weeks until the deadline, when they hope that they can acquire a third baseman. Obviously, their deadline plans got a little bit more complicated over the weekend when they found out that Clark Schmidt needed Tommy John surgery. So now they have to, it looks like they're going to have to try to acquire a proven starter or two to add to the rotation, even with Luis Gil coming back next month. Obviously, they need some bullpen help, as was exposed over the last couple of weeks when they've had some injuries and run a couple guys into the ground just with a long stretch of games here. So, their shopping list got a little bit longer, but I think third base is right up near the top of what they need to add before the July 31st deadline.
All right, so it looks like Brian Cashman is going to have to earn that check before or at the deadline. But $1 million question here: what does this mean for DJ LeMahieu on the long term? I know he's headed to the bench tonight, but how is all of this going to affect what his future is with the club?
Yeah, we'll see. Over the last couple of months, it kind of seemed like that trade deadline was the kind of might be a kind of inflection point for him to kind of it seemed like he had until that day to show them what he had left in the tank. Coming back from the IL, obviously defensively he doesn't have the range that he once did, but offensively he's actually been a pretty solid bat over the last month. I think he's hitting over 300 shot, just over 300 since June 1st. Obviously not a lot of slugging there. I think it's only 2 home runs, but it's a serviceable bat. It's just a matter of can you keep that up if and when you move him to the bench? The other thing is, if they add an infielder, then you would think either that, that forces out either LeMahieu or Peraza. But Peraza can back up shortstop to give Anthony Volpe a spell when needed. So Peraza has that defensive versatility more. So we'll see on DJ. He turns 37 this month. He's still got $15 million left on his contract after this year. It's one more year and 15 million after this season. So it's been kind of a long time coming to figure out what you do with it. It's kind of always seemed like he may not play all the way through the end of that contract with the Yankees at least. But we'll see. Depending on what kind of a bat that what kind of third baseman they can acquire. Do they keep DJ on the bench as a right-handed bat to play occasionally and be a pinch hit guy? We'll see. But it's obviously something to watch here over the next couple of weeks. And obviously depending on what they can do with the trade deadline.
All right, Greg Joyce. Thanks, my man. Thanks for your time.
You got it. Thanks, Brandon.